Hello, everybody. This is Noel, the Red Devil. Sorry about the washing machine in the background. I had to put on a washman, but it's about to spin, so we might hear a little bit noise. But we're here to cover Erik Ten Hag's press conference, and there's actually not much in this press conference, but there are a couple of things that I want to highlight. Firstly, the Harry Maguire saga, and right at the end of the press conference, he was asked about Johnny Evans. I'm going to say this: I back the manager 100%, right? But I wouldn't be a Manchester United fan if I didn't question some of the decisions lately. And he's made some weird decisions lately. So he was asked about Harry Maguire and the deal breaking down with West Ham. And he said that he's happy to be here. Now, I know the manager is going to say that, right? Because, it kind of does upset us fans a bit when we hear a manager, especially when it's a player that we don't want, say that they're happy with the player. But again, he did say this, right? He said that Harry had to fight for his position. Harry knows what the manager expects from him. And you know, again, he kept putting it in Harry Maguire's court. Basically, the ball is in his court. He's basically saying to Harry, look, if you're staying, then you've got to step it up. Now, he also said that he believes that Harry Maguire, and this is when I question the decisions, but I suppose, as I said, if there are clubs sniffing around Harry Kane, or Harry Maguire, I should say, why do I keep saying Harry Kane? Harry Maguire, to make him desirable to other clubs. But the fact that he said he has the ability to do what Erik Ten Hag wants, I'd question that. He can't do what you want. And maybe you are just saying that because you're trying to be nice in this situation, and you don't want to upset the player. But I think we're gone past that. The fans don't want Harry Maguire. The fans see Harry Maguire as someone who's stalling deals right now, because we were hoping with the sale and the money that we were getting off him, we would have, or you would have, your midfielder that you were going after, and the other centre back apparently that you are looking at, or right back, whoever you are looking at. You are looking at someone else in the defensive positions. But you can't do that now because Harry has decided to dig his heels in. Right? So you kind of got to ask, should the manager still be nice about this situation, and say these things? Because I think we're gone past that. Harry needs to go. And remember, it was brought up on another channel that I follow, the Sea Devils. You've got that whole court case coming in February, the one in Greece, right? We don't need this shit, man. We don't need it. And then with the Mason Greenwood stuff, and then all of this takeover nonsense, we do not need it. Now, he was asked about the whole situation with the takeover and Mason Greenwood, and is it affecting the players and himself? And he says no. He says all I've been doing is concentrating on what we need to do. So he's saying that the players aren't affected by anything that's going on, but we know that that's not true. Players are human beings. They're going to be affected by everything that's going on around them in the club. But he also said that our squad was covered, because he was asked about the transfer window. With the Harry Maguire deal not gone through, are you still able to bring in players? And very interestingly, he answered, he goes, well, we're covered in all positions, but we're Manchester United and we always want more. Right? So that's how he answered that question. But let's be honest, Harry Maguire not leaving has put us in a bit of a position now, right? We saw against Wolves that we definitely need another CDM, or we definitely need, well, we need another CDM and we need another central midfield player as well, actually. We need two midfield players, by the way. That's the bottom line. We actually do need two centre midfield players. I mean, we've been linked to your man at Bayern Munich, Gravenberch, isn't it? And Amrabat. I mean, if we were to get those two players in the squad, and I mean, go for the two of them rather than just pick one, as people are suggesting, if we got those two, our midfield is way better than what it is right now. And then the manager has plenty of options then in midfield. And then hopefully then when we're took over by someone that has the funds to actually go out and get players of high caliber, like the Frankie de Jongs of this world that Erik Ten Hag actually wanted. Remember, a lot of these signings, people are saying that they're sick and tired of Erik Ten Hag bringing in players that he knows, right? And people fear that he's trying to replicate the Ajax way at United. But I look at it as at a slightly different way. He knows that he has a limited budget, right? And while we have taken a gamble with the young striker, I don't think Erik Ten Hag wants to take any gambles with any of the other positions, and he wants to bring in players that he can trust. And this is what it's all about. It's players that he can trust, right? So that's why I think we're going for these players. It's the only reason why we're going for these players. Because their owners, again, it all harps back to these gobshites, right? This was a very important season for United. When they announced that they were selling the club in November, we all celebrated, right? We all fucking thought, right, Erik Ten Hag's second season, he's gonna have the funds and the firepower to do what he needs to do for the second season. But it hasn't transpired that way. So he's basically got to do a Del Boy in the transfer window. And he's got to look for players and do deals that he probably wouldn't have done. So, Harry, to me, this whole situation, I mean, I think the manager is handling it properly. I can't say he's not. He's trying to probably obviously make him desirable to other clubs. But if the player's not budging, you could say all you want. If the player's not budging, then you've got to be more ruthless and just tell him, hey, look, you're going and that's it. Like, you're going to West Ham. The deal is there. You're going, right? Look at Tonali, right? He was made leave. He was told he had to go because they needed the money. They forced him out. You cannot tell me that you can't force Harry Maguire out. Of course you can force, but Man United don't want to be seen to force any players out, right? Because we don't like doing that apparently. But we're a ruthless club and we've always have been, or perceived that way. So yeah, he should be out on his ear, because then right at the end of the press conference, he was asked about Johnny Evans, right? And this is why I'm annoyed. I said this when Johnny Evans was signed on that short-term contract during pre-season. I said it on the She Devils. I says, can you imagine we'll end up signing him after his short-term deal is done? And the manager said, we're in talks. We're in talks with Johnny Evans. Now, sorry about the washing machine. It'll finish in a minute, so I hope you can still hear me. But I see fans saying he's better than Harry Maguire, right? He's older than Harry Maguire. Yes, he's right. He's slightly better, right? Slightly. Okay? But here's the thing, right? Who are we? Who are we? We're Manchester United, okay? Right? We shouldn't be given contracts, right? And we've done this during the Ed Woodward era as well, right? We've given contracts to players that shouldn't be getting contracts at the club, right? Look, during pre-season, I have to admit, it was nice seeing Johnny Evans in the jersey again, right, and play the games that he played. But we were told it was so he could get his fitness together so he could find another club. Okay? Now, that other club was not supposed to be our club, right? So the fact that the manager is saying that they're in talks and when there's news, he'll let us know, just goes to show you how bad it is behind the scenes for the manager if he's offering Johnny Evans an extension, another short term deal. And none of this actually, in my belief, would be happening, right? If player deals out there have stalled, right? But Harry Maguire's one, right? No matter what his people say, we know the contract was there. We know he was offered the captaincy. We also know that he was actually offered a decent wage to be there, right? But he's a greedy little scumbag, right? He thinks that he's special, right? I've never heard of it, that a player that's accepted a deal from another team is looking for a payoff, right? If we pay him off, then other players that leave, we'll set a dangerous precedent, and other players around other clubs, including ours, will look at this situation and say, oh, so we might be able to get an extra few quid, what's left of our contract, even if we agree. Sorry, you didn't honour your contract. And fair enough, the club is the one that wants you to leave, but you accepted the West Ham deal. There was a verbal agreement between the two of you. The club was trying to work out the fee, right? Because obviously we wanted more for you, but they didn't want to pay what we wanted. But eventually we got to the figure that was acceptable. And then all of a sudden you decide, oh, you want that extra whatever it is that you think you're owed, even though you've made 40 million in wages without endorsements and all of that other stuff. So flat rate, you've made 40 million off Manchester United and you're looking for a payoff to leave. You're a con artist if ever came of it. You know what? Seriously, I said this a few streams back. You will be considered the worst signing in Manchester United history in the terms of everything that's gone on. And we've had some bad players, no doubt. But you are seriously everything that isn't Manchester United. You do not represent what this club is all about. You even came out and said you don't need to prove anything to anybody. Every time you put that jersey on, you got to prove yourself, but you think you don't have to prove yourself. And the only reason why you're good with England, right, and people need to wise up, the only reason why he's good with England is because Gareth Southgate plays defensive with it, the attacking players that he has. He plays a defensive way, and Harry Maguire is covered, and his mistakes are covered for, right? So Harry Maguire isn't this great defender that he actually thinks he is. He was an average defender at Leicester, seeing us coming and mugged us in broad daylight. And even when we signed him, I was like, he's not worth 80 million and we shouldn't be signing Harry Maguire. But we did, because our club is run. But anyway, he did say that we were covered, but we always look for options in the transfer window. He said that he said also he was asked about, you know, what he expects of the team this season. He says that he knows that they didn't play well against Wolves, but the players need to step it up, and they will step it up according to him. And they have to do better away from home. Now, our record against Spurs is actually decent, believe it or not, but our away record is abysmal. So we've got to change that. And I do believe we'll win today. I know we didn't have a good game against Wolves, but the one thing I have noticed about this Manchester United team is that when we've had a bad game, or we actually got a good result this time, but normally it'd be a bad game, bad result, we bounce back. But I do believe we'll play a little bit better than we did against Wolves. I say the manager would worked on that, and well, that's what you'd expect, wouldn't you? So hopefully he does. He was asked about Martinez. Martinez is available. He was training with the squad. He wasn't asked about a striker, Holland, which was weird. Uh, but again, as I said, we always look for options, but we have a strong squad and we've got people in multiple positions, and that's what we need, he said, which is true. But it's just when you look at the squad, Eric, it's just not, like I believe we'll do well this season. And I do think we'll win something this season. I even said, and I had the confidence to say that I think we can fight and challenge for the league. Obviously, Harry Maguire not going has kind of put a bit of a stub in that, because I was expecting Amrabat to come in and maybe another defensive player. But obviously, that hasn't happened now, so I'm not quite sure. But I do believe if he gets the balance right with the team, we could do well. But Mason Mount and Bruno don't work together, but he'll probably stick with that again today. But we'll see if there's an improvement on it, because they may have worked on it. So he says, we know we've had a difficult start in the Premier League, and we focus on our team, and Spurs is difficult because he was asked, as I said, about the ownership and Mason Greenwood, but he just says they focus on the footballing side of it. He was asked about the Women's World Cup team as well. Just briefly, he wished them the best of luck, and and as I said, Johnny Evans might be staying. As I said, this wasn't a huge press conference. It was only 7 minutes long, believe it or not. There wasn't many questions asked about this. Actually, there was no questions asked about the Spurs game because it's still transfer window. So the press conferences don't get interesting until after the transfer window closes, because then you get the press conferences go on for about 15 bloody minutes, and then you get the embargoed section as well. So the press conferences right now are just going to be about players coming in, injuries, stuff like that, players going out. So that's what dominates the press conferences, unfortunately. But I will be back at 5 for the Spurs game. But I'll just say before I go, on the Spurs game, I think we will beat Spurs today. And I think I'm hoping that we put in a decent performance. I mean, if we perform the way we performed against Wolves, we're getting beaten 4-5-0. No mess. If we play like that, because the problem with Wolves is they carved us open, but they just couldn't score to save their lives. That's all that actually hindered Wolves. They just couldn't score, right? But they had 23 shots at Old Trafford, right? 23 shots. So if we play like that against Spurs, Spurs are going to be more clinical than Wolves are, and we could be looking at a heavy defeat. Now, a lot of fans, look, we shouldn't still be suffering heavy defeats, right? But this team just has it in them now for some weird reason. There always seems to be one during the season or two during the season. Um, it's a horrible feeling to have going into a match. But look, I don't think we could be any worse than we were with Wolves. If Erik Ten Hag has done his job as the manager that we believe that he is, and if these players, look, it's only the first game. I'm not going to. A lot of fan channels already, were on the team, on the players already, right? It's one game into the season, right? Okay. When we get 7 or 8 games into the season, we see where we are. Okay. right? We see how we're playing. That's when you judge, in my opinion, right? Because the first couple of weeks, you're going to see it. Some teams that probably won heavily last week are probably going to get beaten this weekend or draw. This Premier League, this Premier League this year is going to be way more competitive than it was last year. And I don't think it's going to be a one horse or a two horse race this year. I think it's going to be a lot closer, and I think there's going to be several teams in the mix, right? And it'll be those teams, and this is all it'll be. It'll be those teams that can that can keep their players fit, right? And to find that consistency. And that's what United have been lacking over these last few years is consistency. Now, if we can get the consistent part right, we get this young striker on the pitch and he hits the ground running and starts banging in goals, right? And then Rashford's out on the left end and then he starts contributing. I'm not even going mad with Rashford. Everybody having a go at Garnacho as well. You just have to analyse that game. Erik Ten Hag surprised me because he played a completely different way against Wolves than he did during pre-season, right? It was a slight little tactic change, but it meant that when Garnacho got the ball, Luke Shaw wasn't doing that overlap and run, and Garnacho was exposed, right? Because what would happen is Garnacho picks the ball up, or Luke Shaw picks the ball up, gives it to Garnacho, right? Garnacho will hold the ball up, or he'll run with it if he sees an opportunity to run with it. Luke Shaw will then bomb up as well, right? To support him if he needs support, but he wasn't doing that. So Garnacho was getting taken out of the game. Whereas Rashford has a bit more experience in that position. I believe that wouldn't have happened under Rashford because Rashford would have been able, but he still would have had a difficult time. But I reckon Rashford would have had more success, right? But it's key that we get that young lad on the pitch because he will hopefully. I don't know, man. There's just something about Erik Ten Hag that it's like as if he's gotten spooked or something. Because his tactics during pre-season were actually I didn't agree with Mason or with Sancho playing in the false nine. But he did something there. He did more there than he did where he normally plays. So I thought, this is not bad. And Rashford was getting freed up. And then when the young lads were on, they were ripping it up as well. There was such a lovely balance to our team there was. And now all of a sudden there's just I don't know what it is. Maybe it was, think about as well, folks, psychologically what happened to United last season, the first couple of weeks of last season. Maybe that was playing on the player's mind. Maybe that was playing on the manager's mind. Because psychological, there's a mental aspect to the game, folks. So maybe it's a mental block there. Because remember, United and Erik Ten Hag, they've been very clear to emphasize that, they've got, people behind the scenes that if the players need to talk to, they can go and talk to them. Because there is a mental aspect of the game. I don't think people realize, they are human beings after all, privileged all the same. But, they do have different pressures than the rest of us, and some of them suffer from mental health, and there's this mental block with football. So, it's the same with the way we perform, right? We'd either have a bad first half, then we'd be brilliant in the second half, right? Or it'd be the other way around. We'd have a great first half, we'd bang in a goal, right? And then the second half, then we'd completely fall apart and we'd end up drawing or losing the game. So there's that mental block there as well. But look, I'm back at 5 o'clock. We will give you the team news. We'll have team news. We will obviously talk about who's starting. We'll see what everybody thinks of the squad. that we have put out against Spurs, see who's on the bench, and all of that. But also, just to let you know, this is probably going to start getting covered by fan channels out there, and you're going to see a lot of um, social media posts about it. So Anthony, who plays for Manchester United, apparently has been allegedly accused of domestic abuse by an ex partner, and there's a 70-page dossier apparently. So there may be trouble ahead for Anthony or for the club anyway. Again, I even said this, right? I'm not saying Anthony is guilty. We'll wait. Everybody deserves due process. But does the club not do background checks on players? Do clubs not do background checks on players? No. I mean, surely the Dodgers would do that if you're going to spend millions on a player. Find out what kind of character he is. I don't know. Maybe it's just me old-fashioned. But anyway, we'll be back at 5 for Spurs versus Manchester United, our first away game of the season. Hopefully, we bag all 3 points. We will have team news. Obviously, then we'll see what Erik Ten Hag says before we kick off. Obviously, the managers will be interviewed and all of that. So come and join me live, where I'll be reacting live to the game. And of course, hopefully it'll be a Manchester United win. We could put the Wolves game behind us, get a good performance, and then we can move on with a little bit of positivity, because we need it. We need it. It was very funny to see after one game. I wasn't impressed with the Wolves game. I was pretty disgusted at how we played, but I got it out in my system and I was done. But fan channels out there, bigger ones, they milk this for as much as it's worth, and they bang on about it in several videos. And you need to get over yourselves. It's one game of the season, right? We're not even. This is the second week of the Premier League season. You need to chill out, right? Right after, look, if for some years after 4 or 5 games, then you will make up your mind on whether we're going to have a good season or not. But I always think it takes about 6, 7, 8 games before you truly know where you're going to be going, or what direction you're heading in, right? Because because in between that, then you'll have some Champions League games as well. So, that's when you see where you are. That for me personally, I'll wait until the 7th or the 8th game to judge where I think we're going to finish. But I do believe we'll be in the mix. I do. I honestly do. I believe in this manager so much, and I believe in what he's trying to do. Yes, I am worried about some of the decisions he makes sometimes, but look, at Ferguson wasn't perfect either, right? Managers can make mistakes. The thing about that I want to see from my manager and from the players as well is that they learn from the mistakes this season quickly, fast, and we move on and we get that consistency. If we get that consistency, that young lad, we get him back from that injury ASAP and he starts banging in the goals. You have Rashford then contributing. Then, you have Bruno coming up for a goal, and then their defenders coming up from corners, hopefully scoring goals. We get plenty of goals in this team. We'll have a good season, but consistency is what we have to be looking at as Man United fans now. We need that consistency, right? He had a good fourth season, but we had some freak results and big, heavy defeats. So we need to see that consistency. Listen, I don't give a crap, right? If we played like the way we played against Wolves every week, but we got the 3 points and we ended up winning the league, I wouldn't give a shit. Because that's what the manager and the players are there to do: consistency and win and try win trophies. right? It might be pretty, but I take it. But I believe in some of these players. Listen, Bruno had a great preseason. He's going to be great for us again, right? Casemiro will be fine, right? But he does need help in there. He's not getting any younger. You know, he is a world class player. We shouldn't be expecting um, him to cover a whole vast area on his own. And I hope the manager gets that right. Because Casemiro and a lot of the other players looked very leggy near the end of that game at Wolves. A lot of them looked shot, to be quite honest with you. Now, we've had a hard pre-season, right? And this is my only defence for them. They have had a hard pre-season. I watched every game, right? And it was a tough pre-season. And, you know, while the manager won't make the excuses, and we have travelled before, you know, I think with the amount of games that we had as well. I mean, we played a game in Manchester, we played a home game in Manchester, and then they flew to Dublin. And I know it's only across, but all that travelling and stuff. So we did look a bit leggy. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I just think maybe they've kind of overdone the preseason. I actually do think we played too many games preseason, to be quite honest with you. I would rather United have a training camp uh, for around 3 weeks at Carrington and then go somewhere in Europe and play 4 games maybe over a 2 week period, two each week that way, and then get them back. You know, I know we do have global responsibilities and stuff like that, but look, we've been doing preseason away in the US and um, all of these other countries for a while now. So it wouldn't be a bad idea, especially for next season, to have pre-season, you know, in Europe, and because I know they all go to America now because that's where the money is. You know, all of the teams, even mid-table teams in the Premier League, were playing in the USA. Wrexham were playing in the USA, for God's sake, right? So you know, we'll see what happens. But as I said, once we get the win today, we could talk about the performance later. But once we get the win today, I don't care. 3 points in the bag is what we need. We need to start getting consistent. Listen, if we're slow burners, we're always slow burners. I think people forget that. Say with Manchester City, except Manchester City came flying out of the blocks last week. Now, in fairness, they did have Burnley, right? And I know people say Burnley play great football and they walk the champion. Yeah, but the Premier League's different, right? So it was Burnley they were playing. So nobody get ahead of themselves, okay? I mean, they had to beat Sevilla on penalties, didn't they? I didn't watch the Super Cup, by the way. I think I was actually streaming. I didn't even watch the Super Cup final. No interest. Right? I don't want to see them winning trophies, right? But they had to win on penalties or something. Is what I saw because I saw there was 5-4 penalties or something. So Sevilla must have missed the penalty or something or whatever, right? Because City are not as strong as people make them out to be. They're not. And Arsenal, look, yeah, they've brought in some decent players, right, but I don't think Arsenal are any better. I really don't, man. I honestly don't. Um, Liverpool are miles behind us. Chelsea, if they can get their act together, they could cause a bit of an issue, but I just don't see it right now. Um, Spurs, I mean, if we beat Spurs today, I don't think I think Spurs are in trouble anyway. I don't mean as in trouble as in I don't think they're getting Champions League. Like 5 teams qualify for the Champions League. They're not getting fifth place. Um, the team I think everybody needs to be looking out for. And everybody is dismissing them. And I'm going to say this: I actually think Newcastle United are in a title race. I really do. Now, And why do I say that? Because I look at them. I look how they fight for each other. I look at the bonding that they have. And they're after bringing in they're after bringing in Tonali, who's absolutely fantastic. And they have brought in other players that people have said, oh, I'm not sure about them. But the players that they have brought in have goals in them. So I think the dark horses for this Premier League title are actually Newcastle United. And I think we're I think we're another dark horse. Of course, if we can get a couple of more players in before this window closes, we'll have a better chance, of course. But we'll see. For now, we'll see. But keep an eye on Newcastle is all I'll tell you. I just see them doing. I don't think they'll do what they did last season, where they drew a few games and then lost, and we were able to get back. I think they'll be able to maintain a bit more consistency this season. So you've got to actually take Newcastle seriously. But fans won't. But anyway, we'll be back at 5. I'm gonna go now and cook dinner and the washing. I'll see you later. Have a good one. Talk to you very soon, folks, for Spurs versus Manchester United. It should be a good one.